It is time for more Black Star. The story, not the David Bowie album. May he rest in peace. With that being said, let's continue. So if Haru's going to chat up EY, then that leaves me with... kind of drawing a blank, actually. How about Yuki Mishima? He was the fansite's former administrator, so there is a connection. Not Mishima. Not the NPC. But he's so nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're bros and all, but now that the fansite's gone, he doesn't really know any more than the average guy, and he will flip the fuck out if I tell him what happened to Akira. I suppose you're right. He always did seem a bit high-strung. Yeah, the dude's studying for entrance exams. He doesn't need this shit in his life. Is the fansite still up? That Do the Phantom Thieves Really Exist thing is still on 50%, is it? That's awfully considerate of you, Ryuji. I agree with him. We are choosing these people based on their close bond with Akira, so it is quite likely that enlisting the raid will bring them significant distress as well. We should be cautious as to whom we approach and how we deliver the news. I think I'll just walk around town for a few nights, get a feel for things. Maybe ask people off the street if they've seen anything weird, I don't know. Ryuji, are you sure you wouldn't rather meet with Mr. EY? I can take a rain check, it's fine. Nah, it's cool. Need to stretch my legs anyway, clear my head a little. I understand, we're all shaken up right now. Can we please move on already? Yes, we shall. Bad vibrations in the Tokyo air. On its surface, the city remained the same mad jumble of color and light as it always had, unsleeping and unrelenting. The streets packed with bodies and their endless half-heard conversation. The glint of phone screens reflected off 10,000 panes of glass. The silhouettes glimpsed through lit windows 10 or 15 or 20 stories up. The air spiced with street food and smog. Lit billboard mascots leered down from skyscrapers like infantilized renditions of hungry gods. At the scramble, the crowd's chatter was enough to make one's skull rumble, and the 109 loomed over all like some dark and forbidding idol. In this familiar chaos, it would be easy to miss how more and more people wore surgical masks, or how the people browsing their phones often bore an expression that could only be described as fascinated terror, or how everyone simultaneously flinched and turned their heads whenever some unseen voice cried out above the city's usual volume. Everywhere, a gnawing anxiety. Given all the chaos that's been happening in real life, the surgical masks thing is deeply appropriate. Ryuji stood in the station square, leaned up against a closed lottery booth, trying to look nonchalant. Nearby was a loose group of about 24 people. Most of them were wearing masks. None of them would look up from their phones. He sighed and ran a hand through his hair. The hell's going on? He muttered. That video at Shujin wasn't even a week ago. He wanted to break something. Ryuji took his friend's ribbing in stride, but in truth he was all too aware of his shortcomings. Bad grades, big mouth, terrible posture, even worse temper. That last one bothered him the most. He couldn't seem to keep a lid on it. Last year, when Haru's father had dropped dead on live TV, and the public's accusing finger had pointed squarely at him and the rest of the Phantom Thieves, he nearly smashed Akira's couch in half in his fury at being so easily duped. During his time with the thieves, he'd vented out his bottomless frustrations on Shadow's faces. But when the cognitive world disappeared, that stopped being an option. So he decided to man up, let his hair begin the slow and painful journey back to its natural color, and find a healthier way to keep himself in check. Running helped. Whenever something pissed him off, he'd lace up his shoes and burn out his tension alongside the calories. Calories. But now he thought he could run his soles down to melted rubber and still not change anything. He wanted to put his fist through a plate glass window just to break this weird spell hanging over the city streets. A loud and frightful noise to drag everyone out of their own heads and into the world. He decided to get dinner instead. It was dusk and the beef bowl shop on Central Street was packed, but Ryuji managed to squeeze into a stool at the counter. Grease hung in the air like candle smoke, and the smell was already making him drool. He ordered a large beef bowl, and when it arrived, he broke his chopsticks with the air of a samurai unsheathing his blade. 2 minutes later, the bowl was already half empty. Yeah, that's what I tend to do sometimes when I get stressed out by things. I grab a quick snack. I think Yoshida is going to appear in this chapter. My. That's one impressive appetite you've got. Ryuji gulped down his last mouthful and glanced over. The comment had come from the man sitting beside him. Middle-aged, paunchy, dressed in a suit rumpled from long hours of use. He looked like a gently deflated balloon, but his expression was good-humored enough. Yep, it's Torinosuke Yoshida. Yeah, he said. Sorry if I, sprayed you or something. Not at all. I was actually a little impressed. When you get to be my age, you can't pack it away like that without suffering later. The man's own small bowl was empty. You wouldn't happen to be an athlete, would you? If you don't mind my asking. Beef bowl Tora. Ryuji blinked. Yeah, good catch. I'm running track right now. The man didn't look like much, but he had a good voice, deep and sonorous. Ryuji thought he'd heard it somewhere before, but couldn't quite place it. Ah, a runner. I thought as much with your build. The man smiled. As it happens, I was running for a long time as well. For office, that is. The silence that followed was palpable. Right. Ryuji tried unconvincingly to laugh. Heheheh. Good one. It's okay. I know that was awful. Oh, thank God. Now his laugh was sincere. I mean, I didn't want to say anything, but... No. It's impossible to mistake the face of someone who's heard a really terrible pun. Like you just passed an onion under their nose. It's a cruel pleasure of mine, I'm afraid. You're kind of a weirdo, old-timer. Guilty as charged. They laughed again, this time loud enough to make some of the other patrons peek up from their bowls. Ryuji didn't particularly care. This was a relief after the last few days stalking through the perversive wrongness that had crawled around the city streets. Then his eyes widened and he pointed his chopsticks at the man. Hey, now I remember. You're that guy who kept giving speeches at the square last year. His eyes twinkled. Ah, so you heard those, did you? Yoshida Torinosuke, your humble servant. Yep. He'd always go to the beef bowl shop after his speeches. Yeah, I'm not really, into politics, but I hung around and listened to him once or twice. It was weird to hear a guy your age acting like he, gave a shit about people. Oof. Bit damning of my generation, don't you think? Hey, I call him like I see him. Don't be ashamed of that. It's a valuable quality. Torinosuke sighed and stapled his fingers on the counter. As it happened, I finally won re-election last winter. Though I don't know if you can really call it re-election after a 20-year hiatus. Either way, I'm back in the Diet now. Congratulations, man. Seriously. Thank you very much. Of course, with the way things are in that place, sometimes I wish I was back on my soapbox in the snow. Yeah, I bet. Ryuji clicked his chopsticks together a few times, then leaned in and lowered his voice. Hey, you mind if I ask you something? Like, off the record? We're not exactly on the record to begin with here, so ask away. Is anyone in the Diet talking about that Paranoia Syndrome thing going around lately? It's, got me and my friends kinda nervous. Like, all the ministers keep saying it's fake and all, but after that video clip from Shujin, it's been blowing up left and right. Ah, yes. Only fair that you'd be worried, being from Shujin. How'd you... He stopped and glanced down. He'd forgotten he was still in uniform. Oh yeah, the pants. In truth, you can already see a bit of movement away from outright denial where the government is concerned, said Torinosuke. Public statements that have gone from "it's not real" to "here's what you should do if it is real," that sort of thing. But behind closed doors, it seems like everyone is chiefly concerned with quelling public unrest. Because that would make their jobs less comfortable, you see. Some things never change. In my opinion, we need to move away from these half measures and into a full address and investigation of the rumors. But unfortunately, my influence is still quite limited. I might as well be trying to shout over a typhoon right now for all the good it would do. Ain't that a kick in the ass? Ryuji said darkly. You spend 20 years trying to get back into the government and they still don't give a shit. I try to stay optimistic. There's no such thing as a permanent victory after all. Just a series of little ones with ever-increasing setbacks. You learn to find triumph in the struggle. He looked at Ryuji. But honestly, even I don't know how your generation handles this constant intransigence from people in power. Everyone seems so obsessed with hoarding what little they have that they don't even spare a thought to leaving anything for the rest of you. My colleagues and I spend our days endlessly talking about this or that, but the simple question of what the future holds for those who come after us? Not a whisper. It seems downright unspeakable. The future of everyone is being called into question. Both in this story and in reality, it seems. You ain't the only one feeling that way, seems like. Tokyo's been weird lately. Kinda like, I don't know, that jittery feeling you get right before a real big thunderstorm rolls in. That storm has been building for a while. This particular incident with Miss Minami may well have pushed it over the edge. Still, we'll batten down. It's all we can do at this point. He smiled again. I must say it's encouraging to see a young man like you taking such interest in these things. Have you ever considered running for office? What, me? Me? No. God, no. Hell no. His words were vehement, but he felt himself grinning all the same. I mean, I'll be happy to vote for you and all next time elections roll around, but yeah, no. Don't dismiss it so easily. You never know what tomorrow might bring. Torinosuke's face turned wistful. Why, just last year there was a young man who helped greatly with my campaign. He was a Shujin student too. The grin drained from Ryuji's face. Torinosuke didn't seem to notice. He'd also been dealt a bad hand. Much worse than he deserved at his age. But he powered through it. I can only hope his future's looking bright, because God knows he's fought for it. He glanced at Ryuji again. He's moved away now, but I think he might have been in your class. Akira Kurusu, right? Ryuji blurted out, and internally screamed curses at his useless, flapping jaw. I guess we didn't know each other that good, but we kept in touch. Yeah. On and off, texting and stuff. He was a horrible liar. He could practically hear every word clunk as it fell off its tongue, and Torinosuke's gaze had suddenly become very sharp. I see, he said slowly. Has he been well? We kind of fell out of touch after he went home. Another lie. And by the way Torinosuke's eyebrow rose, Ryuji knew he'd seen through it immediately. Well, I hope he got back in touch with his old friends at least. Behind those eyes, another gear clicked into place. If you don't mind my asking, is there any reason in particular why you wanted to know about Paranoia? Ryuji's stool scraped across the floor. Sorry, man, he said. I gotta get home. My mom's going to worry. Oh. Very sorry to keep you then. I do tend to ramble on. No, it's fine, it's cool. Good luck with the politics and stuff. He fumbled out his money and placed it next to his half-eaten bowl and practically dashed out of the shop. As he pushed open the door and glanced behind him, he saw Torinosuke slumped over the counter, face buried in his hands. The night air was freezing, but he swallowed it in gulps as he hustled down Central Street and went around a corner, stopped in front of one of the vending machines. That glass panel with its cheery assortment of soft drinks still held a ghost of its reflection in the deepening night. Held. He could make out those ridiculous yellow streaks in his hair as he laid his head against the cool glass and hissed air through his teeth. Then he clenched his jaw tight and kicked the machine. Then he kicked it again. Then that still didn't seem to be enough, so he balled his fist and slammed it against the machine side again and again, hard enough for the cans to rattle and shatter like a pocket full of change. Then he stopped, because if he kept going, he would either break his hand or get someone to call the cops, and this evening had been lousy enough already. He kept leaning against the machine, taking ragged breaths, and then giggled, high and jagged. He and Akira had brought down a god in full view of the city, and now Akira was comatose, and he couldn't even fumble his way through a conversation. He thought that he might as well just break his leg again and bring things full circle. Then he perked his head up. Distant shouting further down the street, over the city's usual noise. Even from here, he could hear the panic lace through it. He exited the alley and took off running, and for those brief seconds he exulted in that feeling. The rhythmic slap of his feet against the pavement, and the winter air burning in his lungs. The rush of blood in his ears muffling that growing commotion. Then he turned a corner and skidded to a halt. Clustered around a storefront was a small mob of people, phones held high, camera flashes popping off. Through the mad tangle of their legs, Ryuji could make out a hand, sprawled and limp, and reaching out in his direction like someone drowning. Its owner had fallen unconscious. The crowd pushed ever closer, their senseless babble unspooling into the dark. He gulped air and wiped sweat off his brow. No paramedics in sight yet. What is this? He asked, as if expecting someone to answer. What's happening to this city? Hell is breaking loose. That's what's happening.